up for another update on Bueno. He's been with us for about 7 months and he's become super sweet.
Hi, buddy.
He always runs up to you when you go to catch him on pasture. He likes to talk.
Way to go, Boo.
So I've been doing a little bit of groundwork with him here and there, mostly just getting him used to moving around me at the walk, trot, and canter, changing directions, getting him used to the flag, and doing a little bit of desensitizing with him. He's come along really well considering he wasn't halter broke that long ago. He's really sensitive, so he follows the feel on that rope really well, and he really bends in around me and always looks to me when he stops, which I really like. He's really easy to move around on the ground, super responsive, but not overreactive. He does overreact a little bit now and then, but he comes out of it pretty easily. And sometimes you'll see colts that they just like to fly around when you start the groundwork with them. They'll come out of that pretty quick. He was a little bit like that too. He would just bolt and then run around and not stop for a while, but he's really starting to think a little more than react now. He's got really nice gaits. He's a really smooth mover, super athletic, and really responsive there. You couldn't even really see it. I just picked my hand up a little bit and asked him to canter, and he just picks it right up. I didn't even have to use the flag at all. Use the flag a little bit there to keep him going. And then I ask him to stop here and face me, and he just turns right in and drops his head, which is really nice. I ask him to move off the other way. And I always give them a little bit extra room. If I'm going to ask them to canter, it's hard for them to canter on a small circle, so I'll give them a little bit of extra rope, make the circle a little bit bigger. And at first I don't ask him to maintain the canter. I'm just happy with a few steps, and then I'll let him come back down to a trot and I'll ask again. Once he's a bit more familiar with all the exercises, I'll keep him going at the canter. So then I just start doing a little bit of desensitizing with him again with the flag. I always move it in a rhythmic motion. So I start at his withers and I'll work my way back. I never just surprise him with it in random places. I always make sure he knows where it's at. There I'm testing his blind spots, making sure he's not afraid when it just pops up on the other side of him. Now I go to his other side. This is his bad side. He really tries to keep me in that left eye. So when I go to his right eye, he's not super comfortable with it. He's looking away a little bit. He's staying still with his body, but he's mentally trying to escape a little bit there. And then he kind of comes back in towards me and looks at me a little bit and starts to relax with me being on that other side. Testing the blind spot under his belly there. He didn't really like it touching his foot, but he's pretty good about it. This is probably the second or third time I've done this with him, so it's not super new to him. I always want to test that spot above them. You're probably going to have your head right about where that flag is once you're on his back. And if you had a jacket or something on, you want to make sure that he's used to some movements up there. Especially switching from one eye to the other eye. That can be a moment of panic when you first get on them, when they see you out of that other eye on the other side. The other thing I want to do with him is actually make him move his feet while I'm doing this. A lot of horses, they'll shut down and they'll almost freeze and they'll act like they're okay with it, but they're really not. And when you get their feet moving, you can tell really how they're thinking. So I moved on to the saddle pad here, and I just let him smell it and introduce him to it a little bit. I put it on his back and move it around, take it away. When I put anything on them, the first thing I want to do is take it away. And that will show them that it's not going to be there forever. They don't need to panic. It'll go away in a second. And that's true with getting on them for the first time as well. I always get right back off. Now this here was my fault. I put it on him from one side without showing him that on the other side, and that's a good example of him seeing that in the other eye for the first time and panicking because he saw it go on one side, but he didn't see it go on the other side. So I just went around to that other side, that's his bad side again, and worked with him a little bit over here. And I'm just putting it on, taking it off. I'm stepping him towards it. Objects are less scary for the horse if they're not chasing them. So I always step the horse towards the scary object rather than chasing him with it backwards. So I'm stepping him up towards it, testing him, stepping him up towards it again, testing him. There, he's going to let me rub it on his shoulder. He's okay with that. He's kind of looking at me. Now, once you put something like that on the horse, you want to make sure that he doesn't forget that it's there. So I'm always touching it, moving it around. That would be the first time he's had something touch him that wasn't directly touching him. So that's a bit of a different sensation for him too. He feels my hand, but he doesn't feel it directly, so that's a little bit weird for him. And I want to get him used to the motion of swinging the pad up, because it's no use if we sneak up on them and just kind of put the pad on them really slow and almost kind of sneaky about it, and then the next person comes along and throws it up on them. Well, that throwing motion, that's all new to him, so I want him to be good with that too. And I'm still touching it, moving it around, making sure he doesn't forget that it's there. You'll see a colt, if you get up on a colt and you don't move for a few minutes and then all of a sudden you move, it can really startle them because they get comfortable with these things fairly quickly. And they can forget that you're up there sometimes. So again, I'm getting him moving around, making sure that he's not just frozen and accepting these things. I don't want to be flooding him. I want to make sure that he's actually comfortable, so we're asking him to move around and do some maneuvers and making sure that he's comfortable doing them with the saddle pad on his back. I've been working with him on throwing the lead over his head. That would be like you throwing your reins over him. He wasn't really happy about that at first, so I just worked with him on it, getting him used to going over his ears and that. Then we took out the tarp. Tarps are cool because they're super noisy and they have a totally different sensation than like a saddle pad. You can do a lot with a tarp. So first I'm asking him to walk over it. He's not sure about this at all. So I just use some light pressure and release to get him to step towards the tarp. Every time he takes a step towards it, I release pressure on the lead. And I'll walk on it too and show him that it's not something that's going to eat him or anything. And I'll let him sniff it. He took a step, he touched it with his foot, it made a crinkly noise, so he backed off and just sped up the video here. All he's doing is sort of sniffing it and making sure that it's okay. Then I'm not going to pull him over it, I'm just going to suggest that he moves his feet forward and just tries it out a little bit. And he caught on to this really, really quick, a lot quicker than I actually expected him to. The front feet were okay. The back feet were a little bit questionable. He went over it, but he rushed over it, so we're going to go back and try it again. Scared himself a little bit there. Right back to it. And very quickly it becomes not a big deal. He actually starts trying to bite it and rip it pretty quickly during this exercise. And I think that working with the saddle pad first and doing a lot of the other groundwork, it definitely makes this stuff a lot easier for them. And that was really nice there. So I stopped that. And then I picked it up and started working with him, letting me put it on him. There's some footage missing here. He wasn't perfect with it, but he wasn't too bad. He ran away from it a couple times, and then it didn't take too long before it was on his back, and he was moving around, and all the crinkly noises were happening, and he was pretty happy about it. And this is where that groundwork comes in. importance. I need really good control on the groundwork if I'm going to have control introducing him to these scary objects. And letting it fall down in front of him is good exercise too. If someone ever fell off of him, he'd stop and maybe sniff them. Wouldn't take off on you. Now he just starts playing with it. So that's an update on Bueno. He's doing really good. He's a super cute boy. We're happy to have him.